You're in for a treat if you're a guns fan or simply inquisitive about the growth of one of the most renowned pistol series. In this video, we'll take a careful look at the many generations of Glock handguns, from the early days of Gen 1 to the most recent improvements of Gen 5. Glock, a well-known name in firearms, has evolved through several generations of pistols. These generations, from the first to the most recent, display advances in design, ergonomics, and performance, reinforcing Glock's position as a preferred choice for law enforcement, military, and civilian users. Glock 1, 1982 to 1988. The first Glock to hit the market was the Glock 17, a 17-rounder pure coincidence because Glock numbers their guns based on patents, not capacity or caliber. The use of a polymer frame, which was a unique concept at the time, was one of the distinguishing aspects of the Glock 17 and later Glock models. Some individuals were concerned that this lightweight and resilient material might elude metal detectors in airport security inspections. As it turned out, the gun featured numerous key metal components that would have tripped the sensors, but Glock had clearly engraved its brand into the American public's consciousness. The original generation of Glocks did not have as many features as later generations, but it had a lot to recommend it despite the fact that it had been used by the Austrian military for several years by the time it arrived in our shores. Despite initial reservations, Glock has had a substantial effect on the American weapons market. The striking style and inventive characteristics of their pistols helped the brand become well-known and recognizable. Gen 2, 1988 to 1997. When Glock debuted the Gen 2 in 1988, people were understandably intrigued as to what changes the business made to an already popular and dependable pistol. There weren't many modifications, as it turned out. Glock introduced additional calibers and a handful of passive safety modifications on the inside. The most visible alterations in the Gen 2 pistols were cosmetic, with a concentration on the grip. Glock made the checkering on the front grip and back strap more prominent. The checkered pattern on the grip was created in response to consumer comments requesting a more secure and slip-resistant grip. This modification enabled users to maintain better control when firing, which is critical for accuracy and safety. This modification was designed to increase users' grip and control of the gun, particularly in unfavorable situations. The availability of caliber options other than the original 9mm was a notable shift with Gen 2. This gave consumers the option of selecting from a broader range of calibers to fit their tastes and demands. Internal safety enhancements were made by Glock in the Gen 2 versions, while the upgrades to the internal safety systems of Gen 2 Glock handguns were not revolutionary. They did improve the overall safety and dependability of the firearms. These improvements were made to make the handguns more reliable in a variety of circumstances and use scenarios. Gen 3, 1998 to 2009. Glock's largest changes to date came with the Gen 3. They kept all the alterations from the Gen 2 model, but they also added a few elements that surprisingly were contentious. One important improvement in the Gen 3 pistols was the inclusion of an accessory rail, sometimes known as a Picatinny rail or universal rail. This rail enabled owners to connect a variety of accessories such as weapon-mounted lights, lasers, and other suitable attachments. This addition brought Glock pistols into step with other modern weapons that have comparable rails for modification. The two contentious adjustments to the grip were finger grooves in front and a thumb rest on either side. While this may not seem like a significant thing to some, others didn't understand the use of the thumb rest, and still others believed Glock made a mistake by adding finger grooves to the previously smooth yet checkered grip. The upgrades introduced in the Gen 2 pistols, such as new caliber possibilities, internal safety enhancements, and improved grip texture, were carried over to the Gen 3 variants. In Gen 3 guns, Glock included a dual recoil spring assembly. This invention reduced recoil and increased overall durability, resulting in better performance and a longer service life for the handgun. Rough textured frame-to-grip texture was added to some later variants of Gen 3 firearms. This texture was created to give a more stable grip in unfavorable situations, hence improving control over the handgun. The magazine capacity introduced in Gen 2 Glocks was retained in Gen 3. They generally carried 10 to 17 rounds in the magazine, depending on the caliber and type. Glock's Gen 3 range had a variety of finish choices, including basic finishes like black and more specialized finishes like the Tenifer corrosion-resistant coating. While not always obvious on the outside, Gen 3 pistols continued to build on Glock's reputation for dependability and durability, with modest internal improvements targeted at increasing these qualities. Gen 4, 2010 to 2016. When Glock released the Gen 4 in 2010, Anti-finger groovers hoped they had been eliminated, but they remained, as did the thumb rests. However, there was one mechanical change hidden behind the slide: a new dual recoil spring. The new two-stage spring, marketed as a recoil reducer, acted like a piston within the spring to essentially convert the previous one-spring recoil system into a two-spring system by inserting a smaller coil inside the larger one, akin to a shock absorber. Many transfer shooters from Gen 3 to Gen 4 firearms noted how much better the recoil felt on the newer guns. A bigger magazine release was another outside enhancement. While this may not seem like a major change, having additional space for the thumb makes dumping the magazine much easier. One of the most popular aftermarket improvements among Gen 3 owners was a larger mag release. Thus, Glock made the change available to everyone by manufacturing a large mag release button from the manufacturer. Glock also recognized that not all hands are made equal and developed replacement backstraps in a number of sizes to fit a broad range of hand sizes. As the demand for handgun red dots grew at the end of the Gen 4, Glock responded with a MOS version that was ready to receive most major red dot brands from the factory, with no milling or gunsmithing necessary. Also, some Gen 4 models had an upgraded grip texture called Rough Texture Frame 3 RTF3, which was supposed to give a more stable grasp. This texture was unlike the preceding RTF2 texture. In comparison to earlier versions, the Gen 4 pistols had a reduced trigger reach distance. This was especially useful for shooters with tiny hands since it lowered the amount of reach needed to engage the trigger. In Gen 4 guns, Glock modified the magazine follower and spring design, improving feeding reliability and overall magazine performance. Aside from the dual recoil spring, Gen 4 Glock pistols also had a captured recoil spring assembly, which made the handgun easier to service. Slight releases in both sides of the frame were provided on Gen 4 handguns, catering to both right and left-handed shooters. Gen 5, 2017 to present. Since the launch of the Glock handgun series, Gen 5 has seen by far the most exterior improvements. There was 5 main innovations that distinguished the current generation from its forefathers. The first feature was ambidextrous slide stops. Lefties may now play in the Glock universe without having to change their grip to work the slide. Forward slide serrations were added in Gen 5 Glocks, a design characteristic already seen in Glock's rivals. The serrations on the front of the slide make it simpler to do press checks, which include partially pulling back the slide to visually confirm the existence of a round in the chamber. Glock took a hint from the completion rolled and slightly flared the mag well. From the exterior, the contour change was scarcely evident, but the bigger mouth made mag swaps easier. The slide and muzzle were beveled and molded for a more rounded look, a clear nod to the Glock's ubiquitous status as a concealed carry mainstay. The marksman barrel was also introduced in the Gen 5 Glock handguns. This barrel has revised rifling and crown geometry to increase accuracy and precision. The previous generation's half-moon cutout on the bottom of the grip's front strap was removed in Gen 5 models. This modification was developed to increase the frame's overall durability. The slide and barrel of the Gen 5 handguns were finished in a new NDLC coating. This coating is intended to be more resistant to corrosion and scratches, extending the life and beauty of the handguns. Along with a slightly flared magwell, Gen 5 pistols included a broader magazine baseplate for enhanced magazine handling and faster reloads. Also, an orange follower was included with Gen 5 magazines to improve visual detection of an empty magazine. Glock's Gen 5 slides and muzzles were beveled and rounded to increase concealability and comfort, resulting in a more streamlined and polished look. Will they make a comeback with the Gen 6 model? At this moment, there's no way to tell. Which Glock generation is your favorite and why? Hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments below. Do you want to know which are the best .32 ACP pistols? Then check out the video 7 best .32 ACP pistols to buy and collect. Thank you for watching.